So we have a question here from Riley, which is when and how should I bring in people to handle finance and legal in my business? And this is an excellent question, particularly for early stage business owners. I myself personally was literally a solopreneur. I started my business when I was 15, but the actual company was launched when I was 20 years old. And, going into entrepreneurship is pretty scary because all of a sudden you're thrust into the wilderness with all of these responsibilities on you, like legal, like finance, like, taking care of staff, HR and employment. And you basically got a lot of things to do and to manage and to learn as well. And all at the same time. Now, when you're thinking about managing things like finance and legal, I would say the first ones to make sure you get right are, of course, those that are going to get you in the most trouble if you get them wrong. So having enough money is probably pretty important. Legal is probably pretty important as well. And these are the things that you're probably going to start having outsourced in the business, and you're probably going to have them outsourced for a very long time. It's not until you're going to be at least 20, 30, 40 employees and above that you might consider having maybe an internal bookkeeper or an internal accountant or an internal lawyer. Eventually, businesses will get to the stage where they go in and hire those kind of roles, but they're probably typically going to be the last ones. And so the skill that you need to actually build there is vendor selection. And a vendor selection basically means like, who are you going to be working with who's going to be supporting your business? And that means that you probably don't just want to hire the first person who walks through the door who's an accountant or just one recommendation from one friend. You probably want to interview different people and you want to build a process around choosing the right kind of vendors for your business, because you're going to have different stages of business and you're going to have different needs as those stages of business grow, as you scale and grow your team. And you're going to have potentially different needs and you're probably going to cycle through different vendors as that happens. And so you want to get good at picking people who are going to be aligned to your business. You're going to have some that work out, you're going to have some that don't work out as well. But I typically respond to most business challenges with trying to get the perfect process. And then once I've got the perfect process, then it's just a matter of repeating that process, repeating that best practice process. So the process that we're building here is, how do you select a great vendor? And once you've selected a great vendor, how do you manage them to make sure that they're aligned to your business and that they're supporting your business well as well? So what might that look like if you're working with an accountant or a lawyer or someone outsourced in the business? Well, it might look like, do they get the business? Have they done work in the industry before and have they worked with similar businesses to yours? If you're a service business, have they worked with service businesses? If you're a product business, have they worked with product? If you're e-com, probably every product business is an e-com business these days. If you're e-com, have they specifically worked with e-com businesses? And that's the kind of thing that I would ask in an interview. I'd either buy them lunch or have a coffee or something like that, or Zoom meeting these days in the pandemic days, and say, hey, tell me about the kind of businesses that you've worked with in the past. What businesses like mine have you worked with? Then I would want to know, are they aligned on culture and vision? So I would share the vision of our business. I would share, what our business is like. I would share what I'm like to work with. I've got a pretty good idea now, working with myself for a while, what my strengths are, where I'm not so good. And I would share with them, hey, what do you think it's going to be like with us working together? How will you choose to work with a founder like me? What will you bring to the table that's going to be in alignment with where we want to go, with who I am as a founder, and with the team that I want to build as well? And get a bit of an idea of, okay, are we going to be a good fit together? And I'd approach this a little bit like you're approaching hiring someone. And the golden rule with hiring is you start with a no, and you only allow someone to convince you to a yes or a maybe if they're the perfect candidate. So you want to be doing the same kind of thing. You want to start with, I'm not going to hire this person, and let me see if they can convince me that they're either a maybe or a potential yes. And you want to do that with a couple of people and see if you can find someone who's the perfect fit for your business. Because the challenge with bringing someone on like accounting or like legal is eventually you will probably change at some point during the business journey. And that can be a bit of a challenge. It's like kind of changing relationships, because there is a component of relationship there, but you also have all of the practicals of the actual work that they're doing for you. And it's a pretty big disruption to need to change from one vendor to another vendor. It's just like placing a staff member in the business. You need to actually have someone hand over all the things they were doing. You're going to find gaps in things they weren't doing great. And then you need to brief and hand it over to the new person who's come into the business, which is going to take some additional effort as well. So I want to talk a little bit more about when. When is the right time to actually bring on people like that inside the business? Well, you're going to have to start basically having consultants in the business probably from day one. But remember that you also have the option to upskill yourself as well. And so you always have the option inside your business to actually do the upskilling of yourself, that will save you some time and some effort with outsourcing. And that becomes a delicate balance. You only have two things that you can leverage. You can either leverage your time or you can leverage your money. And so when we're outsourcing or delegating to someone else outside the business, or even technically inside the business, what we're doing is we're leveraging our money. We're saying, okay, I don't have the time to do this, and I'm asking you to do it. So you're leveraging your money for that person to get the effort done or to get the work done. But you also have the ability to leverage your own time by upskilling yourself. Now, if you're an early stage entrepreneur and you're literally in launch mode or startup mode, there's going to be quite a lot that you're doing yourself. But I have the firm belief that as much as possible, you want to get things off your plate. And I would even say for the first 5 years in business, sacrificing profit to get more things delegated to more people. Leverage as much as possible the revenue that you have in the business that would normally go to profit and use that to actually delegate and outsource to other people. Because the golden rule of small business is you want to get to 20 employees. Once a business typically gets to 20 employees, that's the point where the founder can start to step back a little from the business, put in some managers in place, and you basically get to the point where you unlock the freedom of being a business owner. Now, this obviously varies from industry to industry, but this is what it looks like on our growth roadmap. So if you haven't already been to our channel and checked out the growth roadmap, just go a search on YouTube and you'll find it, and we'll link to this video down below in the show notes. But the growth roadmap is basically once you get to this scale stage, you're over 20 employees. Once you're at 20 employees, then basically your role as a business founder is to manage the culture, is to manage the overall strategy, basically the position that I'm in as well. But you're no longer really needed or involved in the business day to day anymore. And what that means is that a lot of that is handed off to other people, which is pretty cool. If you like this content, please hit subscribe and hit the bell notification so you can be notified when we go live or drop new content on the channel. Now, if you'd like to connect with us, hit us up on social media or join our free community group. All the links to that are right below this video. If you'd like to learn more about Google Workspace and the technology ecosystem, you can join our free Genius Academy by transferring your billing across to itGenius. Or you can join a Workspace Basics Bootcamp. Now, if you're a business owner and you're interested in an audit on your technology stack or your Workspace account, or you're looking to do a project in the tech world, well, you can take advantage of our free consultation. And if you need help right now, then consider joining Concierge or taking up a quick fix with our team for professional support for your tech stack.